Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter. And today we are talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and once again, the Devin Lloyd situation. Folks, we're going to talk about this a lot until free agency comes and goes. We're going to talk about this a lot even next football season. Because the Devin Lloyd situation is a move that is going to partly define the Jaguars' 2026 offseason. I think I've made it clear where I stand. I think Devin Lloyd, really good player, great guy, great locker room member, good leader. Literally nothing negative anybody will say about Devin Lloyd because there's nothing negative to be said. And he had a fantastic year. Second team All-Pro, can definitely make the argument he should have been first team All-Pro. Now he should have been a first team or, main selection Pro Bowler. Had a remarkable year, and the Jaguars would not have gotten where they got without him. That is a totally different equation and sentiment, though, than should the Jaguars re-sign him. He is set to hit numbers at the linebacker position in free agency that not many players have ever even been able to dream about touching. Obviously, the Jaguars could re-sign him before he hits free agency. Maybe he takes less in a team-friendly deal. Never say never in the NFL, but it'd be very surprising they franchise tagged him, considering that would cost about $28 million just for the one season. And within all of that, I think the next question beyond that, because I think all that evidence points to one likely outcome. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I'll be wrong again, but I am not of the belief that Devin Lloyd will be a Jaguar next year. And it's literally not because that's what the Jaguars want. It's not because that's even seemingly what Devin Lloyd wants. He said himself on a couple occasions that there's a lot of pros to being back in Jacksonville. But the simple economics of his position and where he finds himself entering this offseason make it kind of difficult to see. A perfect example why is look at the rest of this linebacker class in free agency. That brings me to my main point. My main point is that if you get beyond the scope of the will he be back question of Devin Lloyd, and if you lean more toward no, and you have to go deeper, because if he does come back, there's obviously no questions moving forward. Questions, of course, about the other guys that they'd have to extend and whatnot. I'd argue you almost have to decide if you want to extend Devin Lloyd or Trayvon Walker right now. There's always money in the banana stand. That's how I've always looked at the cap space. And I know it's not that simple, but you could make it work with both of them if you have to. But it definitely seems like the smart thing as a franchise is to, ask more questions. Okay, what's next after they kind of pivot here? And that question is, how do you replace Devin Lloyd if he walks in free agency? You have a couple internal solutions. You have Ventrell Miller. Ventrell was battling Devin Lloyd for a starting spot. I thought he had a really good training camp. He played well in the regular season when he was inserted. He's honestly always played well when given snaps. He's a really good special teamer. Universally beloved guy. Again, much like Devin Lloyd. He's a ball of energy. He's somebody who I really think is underrated entering the offseason. I very well could see him be a 17-game starter and a potential, at the very least, short-term solution for Devin Lloyd because he is also entering a contract year in 2026. So you have him. They drafted Jack Kaiser early on day 3 a year ago. He played mostly, reserve snaps, special teams. He got in there a few times when they were in blowouts. He got in there some, I believe, against the San Francisco 49ers in week 4. It's probably his most non-blowout action when they had some injuries at the linebacker position. I think it would be expecting a leap out of Kaiser, and I also think Kaiser might be their succession plan instead for Foye Oluokun down the road. But if you don't go one of those two guys, because Jalen McLeod and Yasir Abdullah aren't, inside linebackers. They're obviously Sam linebackers in the Jaguars defense. Then you have two other options. You can draft a guy, and yeah, they have 11 picks, including 4 picks in the top 100. You can spend a top 100 pick on a linebacker, and he can reasonably enter training camp as a potential starter. I think behind how the Jaguars did rookies last year, they'd probably go in the training camp no matter what. I think Ventrell Miller will be the starter going into training camp in the position, regardless of if they draft a rookie or not. And regardless, I mean, even if they draft the rookie as high as number 56, that's, they come into camp, it seems like, and rookies, they have to earn their spots. And they do. It's not to say the rookies didn't play a sizable role or they didn't, earn their keep. They very much so did. I think they'd have to come in and compete with Ventrell Miller, potentially Jack Kaiser. Who would win that? Probably a case-by-case basis, depending on the player. Nobody really knows how any of them would exactly perform, so it's just kind of a projection. And then I think that, obviously, the final option, and the one I want to talk about here, is free agency. And why I don't think the Jaguars can use free agency to try to replace Devin Lloyd. It'd make a lot of sense, try to, if you get a veteran who gets paid on the open market, just try to find a cheaper kind of solution. You don't have to go to a rookie, but you still find a guy who you think can potentially be an upgrade over the internal options. It's not a great linebacker class in free agency. I mean, just looking at the names, you go to Spotrick and their predicted market value, average annual value contracts on linebackers. Devin Lloyd leads the pack at over $20 million. The next closest linebacker is 37-year-old, 15th-year linebacker Demario Davis, who they project to sign a contract just under $9.5 million. Less than half of what Devin Lloyd's projected to get annually. It's Devin Lloyd, and then it's everybody else in this linebacker market. I think Quay Walker is a bit undervalued here. I think Quay Walker will get somewhere, I'm going to guess around 11 or 12 million per year, but I think Devin Lloyd will get more than that. I wrote the other day one of our podcast stories about the Devin Lloyd situation, how I've heard the expectation amongst other NFL teams and front offices is that Devin Lloyd will be the top linebacker on the market and that they believe he will be available. In the number he could sign for, looks like it'll be absolutely bonkers. I mean, and look at some of these other names. Quincy Williams. It had a nice run with the Jets, obviously. When Robert Saleh was there, made a lot of plays, earned a lot of very much so earned recognition. But not exactly a player who's close to what Devin Lloyd is kind of used as. Caden Ellis makes sense to a degree. He's always blitzed a lot. But he's projected to sign a contract of just under $9 million. He's projected to be about half of appealing of a free agent as Devin Lloyd. Devin Bush, obviously with Cleveland, you have to wonder if he's just more valuable to Cleveland than anybody else. I mean, Nakobe Dean at 25 years old, I just don't think he gives you necessarily what you'd be losing. Bobby Wagner, Levante David are 35 and 36 years old. Alex Anzalone is 31 years old. They have edge players listed along here, but even the next linebackers in the next tier, Kenneth Murray, EJ Speed, Alex Singleton. I mean, it just is not a very appealing group. If the Jaguars are going to have a veteran play linebacker next season, it will be one of the guys on their team. I feel confident in saying that. And yeah, maybe they still sign one of these veteran guys. I mean, there's names out here who potentially could make a lot of sense as a depth piece or maybe some competition. But Devin Lloyd is one of one in this offseason. There is no other Devin Lloyd at linebacker this year. That's why Devin Lloyd is expected to get such a massive deal this offseason. So buckle up. The linebacker market definitely looks like it's about to explode. And looks like the Jacksonville Jaguars are about to be on the other side of it.